He broke her heart, underestimated her strength, and walked away for a younger model. But she was never the one who lost. Welcome to today's story. Tell me in the comments, what time is it, and which country are you watching from? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss an adventure. The house was too quiet that night. Outside, rain pressed softly against the glass walls of the Dean's modern mansion. The kind of home that looked perfect from the outside but felt hollow inside. Sasha Dean had been in bed for hours, half asleep, the TV murmuring in the background. She glanced at the clock on the nightstand. 11:47 p.m. The phone rang. The sound sliced through the stillness like a blade. Sasha frowned. No one ever called her this late, except emergencies. Her hand hesitated over the phone for a moment before she picked it up. Hello. Silence. Then breathing, shaky, uneven. Sasha, came a voice, trembling and low. It was Riley Reed, her best friend since college. But something in her tone sent Sasha's heart racing. Riley's voice was soft but urgent. The way people sound when they don't want to say what they have to say. Riley? What's wrong? I saw Jordan tonight, Riley whispered. Sasha sat upright instantly. You saw him? Where? There was a pause long enough for Sasha to hear her own heartbeat. Then Riley exhaled shakily. He wasn't alone. The words landed heavy. Sasha's mind froze. What do you mean he wasn't alone? She asked, her voice tightening, her fingers gripping the phone until her knuckles went white. Riley didn't answer right away. Sasha could hear noise in the background. Maybe cars, a busy street, or maybe just the tremor of guilt in her friend's breathing. Finally, Riley said it. He was with Isabella Vega. The name hit Sasha like a punch to the chest. Isabella Vega. The name everyone in America knew. The face on magazine covers, the model who smiled from billboards and perfume ads. Perfect, glamorous, everything Sasha was told she should envy. For a second, the world around her went still. The rain outside stopped making sound. The air in the room thickened until she could hardly breathe. That can't be right, Sasha whispered, her throat dry. You're sure? I wish I wasn't, Riley said quietly. I saw them at the plaza. They were close, holding hands, laughing. A pause. I'm sorry, Sash. I didn't want to tell you this over the phone, but I couldn't sleep knowing you didn't know. Sasha felt the tears sting before she even realized she was crying. Her husband, Jordan Dean, the charming, golden boy of real estate, the man she had built her life around, was with someone else. Thank you, Riley, she managed to whisper, though her voice trembled. I'll call you tomorrow. When she hung up, the silence in the mansion was suffocating. The rain started again, steady and rhythmic, the only sound in the hollow house. Sasha turned her head toward the other side of the bed, the side where Jordan should have been. His pillow was untouched. Cold. On the nightstand lay the book he'd been reading for weeks, still on the same page. His cologne still lingered faintly in the air, the new scent he'd started wearing. Expensive, sharp, and unfamiliar. She remembered how he'd been lately. The late nights at the office, the sudden business trips, the way he kept his phone face down during dinner, always buzzing, always locked. The way he barely looked at her anymore, even when she wore his favorite red dress. Still, she had believed him when he said he was just stressed. She told herself every marriage had rough patches. She had trusted him. Now the illusion shattered piece by piece. Sasha got out of bed and walked barefoot across the marble floor, her reflection following her in the glass windows. The woman staring back at her looked elegant, but fragile. A woman who had built her world around someone who didn't think twice about breaking it. She sat on the edge of the bed and buried her face in her hands. The clock blinked 12:14 a.m. Somewhere in the city, Jordan was probably smiling, saying something witty, his hand resting on another woman's back. The same hand that used to trace circles on her skin when she couldn't sleep. By the time the rain stopped, Sasha had stopped crying. Her tears had burned out, leaving behind something colder, heavier, clarity. She realized that what hurt most wasn't the betrayal. It was how easily he had lied, how naturally he had looked her in the eye every morning and kissed her goodbye before running to someone else. The first light of dawn crept through the curtains, painting the room in pale gold. Sasha was still awake, sitting on the bed, motionless, her phone still in her hand. Outside, the world moved on. Cars, birds, the hum of morning life. But inside the Dean mansion, something had died. Not love, but the illusion of it. And in its place, something else began to stir. Not rage. Not vengeance. Awakening. Sasha didn't know it yet. But that night wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning. The first fracture in the glass that would one day let the light in. By dawn, she wasn't the same woman who'd gone to bed at 10 p.m., waiting for her husband to come home. The naive, hopeful wife was gone. In her place sat someone quieter, stronger, a woman who would soon discover that sometimes the most painful night of your life is the one that sets you free. The clock ticked past 3 a.m. when Sasha heard the sound of tires rolling up the driveway. Headlights cut across the marble foyer before disappearing. The familiar purr of Jordan's black Aston Martin hummed through the walls. Sasha sat in the dark on the living room sofa, still in her robe, her fingers wrapped tightly around a cold cup of tea she hadn't touched in hours. She didn't flinch when the door unlocked. Jordan stepped inside, the scent of his cologne, the new one she used to think smelled like success, filling the air. He looked surprised to see her awake. His tie was undone, his shirt half open, his hair tousled just enough to look careless. "Why are you sitting in the dark?" he asked, his tone calm, casual, almost annoyed, as if she were the one who had broken something. Sasha didn't answer right away. She simply looked at him, her face unreadable in the low light. "Where were you?" Jordan sighed, tossing his keys on the counter. "Don't start, Sasha. It's late. I asked you a question," she said quietly. Her voice didn't shake. It was steady, almost eerily calm. He looked at her then, really looked. Her eyes were tired, but there was something fierce behind them, something he hadn't seen before. "I was at dinner," he muttered. "With Isabella Vega," she said. The name hit him like a slap. For a second, his jaw tightened. "Who told you that?" "That doesn't matter," she said, standing slowly. "How long, Jordan?" His silence was the answer. The room stretched with tension, every second louder than the last. Sasha felt her heart pounding, but she didn't move. She wanted to hear him say it. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost rehearsed. "Sasha, things between us have been different for a long time. You know that." Her throat went dry. "Different?" He exhaled. "You're good, Sasha. You always have been. But Isabella makes me feel alive." The words hung there, venom wrapped in velvet. Sasha's lips parted, but no sound came out. She just stared at him, searching for the man she used to know, the one who used to bring her flowers for no reason, the one who'd promised her forever. But he was gone. Then came the sentence that would burn into her memory forever. "You're good," he said again, his tone soft, almost pitying. "But you're just ordinary." The word hit her like a bullet. Ordinary. The woman who had built his life from scratch, who had stayed up all night helping him perfect investor proposals, who had stood beside him through failure and debt, and every sleepless night, was now ordinary. Her vision blurred. She couldn't tell if it was tears or rage. "You don't mean that," she whispered. Jordan ran a hand through his hair and looked away. "I think we both know this isn't working anymore." Sasha let out a short, bitter laugh. "So that's it? 8 years. And you throw it all away for a model who barely knows what real love looks like?" He didn't respond. Instead, he walked to the bedroom, packed a few clothes into an overnight bag, and zipped it shut. The sound echoed like a door slamming in her heart. When he passed her on his way out, she caught a faint glimpse of guilt in his eyes, but only for a second. Then he was gone. The front door closed softly, followed by the fading hum of the car pulling away. And just like that, Sasha was alone. She stood there, staring at the door, her body frozen, her heart numb. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, suffocating. The next morning, she woke up on the couch, her robe still on, her phone buzzing beside her. Dozens of missed calls, messages, and one news alert that made her stomach drop. Tycoon dumps wife for supermodel. Her picture, the one from their anniversary gala, was splashed across every tabloid. Her smile, her diamond necklace, her husband's hand around her waist. The perfect couple. Now, the perfect scandal. Reporters camped outside their gates before noon. Cameras flashed through the iron bars as Sasha tried to leave for her lawyer's office. Her hands shook as she signed the divorce papers, her signature barely legible through the blur of tears. The world had already taken sides. Some pitied her, some mocked her, but no one truly saw her. Not the pain, not the betrayal, not the humiliation that came with watching your private heartbreak become a public headline. When she got home that night, the mansion felt colder than ever. Every wall whispered memories she wanted to forget. The laughter, the promises, the dreams. She walked into the bedroom and stared at the empty closet where Jordan's suits once hung. For the first time, she realized that silence wasn't her enemy. It was her beginning. She closed the door, locked it behind her, and stood at the window, watching the city lights flicker below. Somewhere out there, Jordan and Isabella were probably dining under chandeliers, smiling for cameras. Let them. Because even though Sasha didn't know it yet, life was about to hand her something far greater than what she lost, something that would change her story forever. But for now, all she could do was breathe and promise herself this: she would never be ordinary again. 3 months had passed since Jordan walked out of her life, and yet his ghost lingered in every room. Sasha Dean tried to keep herself busy, sorting documents, selling off furniture, pretending to rebuild, but the ache of betrayal clung to her like perfume she couldn't wash off. Some nights, she'd wake up reaching for him, only to find the cold emptiness of the other pillow. Other nights, she'd stare at the ceiling and whisper to herself, "He's not coming back." He chose her. But lately, something strange had been happening. She was constantly exhausted, dizzy at random moments, her appetite unpredictable. At first, she blamed stress, the divorce, the endless media coverage, the nights she barely slept. But when she found herself throwing up after her morning coffee for the 3rd time that week, a thought crept in she didn't dare say aloud. It couldn't be that. It couldn't. But it was. The little white stick on the bathroom counter told her everything: pregnant. Her hands trembled as she stared at it. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Her mind spun with disbelief, panic, and something else, a strange flutter of hope she didn't know how to name. She sat down on the cold tile floor, tears slipping down her cheeks as 1,000 memories flooded in. Jordan's laughter, his promises, the way he once held her hand and said, "Someday, we'll have a big family." That someday had come, just not the way she'd imagined. A week later, she sat in her doctor's office, still processing what her life had become. The room smelled of antiseptic and mint, the hum of machines steady in the background. Dr. Patel, a kind woman in her 50s, smiled as she adjusted the ultrasound machine. "Let's take a look, shall we?" Sasha nodded nervously, lying back as the cold gel touched her skin. The doctor moved the probe slowly, her expression neutral, until it wasn't. Dr. Patel's eyes widened slightly. Then she smiled. "Well, this is quite something." Sasha's heart raced. "What do you mean?" The doctor turned the screen toward her. "You're carrying 4 babies." For a moment, everything stopped. The air left the room. Sasha blinked at the black and white image on the screen. 4 tiny flickering lights. "4," she whispered. "For," Dr. Patel said, her voice warm but calm. "All strong heartbeats." Tears welled in Sasha's eyes. She laughed softly, half joy, half disbelief. 4 heartbeats. For little miracles, the doctor said gently. 4 heartbeats. For lives. For reasons to fight. That night, Sasha sat on her bed, surrounded by silence. For the first time in months, she didn't feel broken. She felt chosen. Jordan's words, "You're ordinary," echoed in her mind, but this time they didn't hurt. Because deep down, she knew there was nothing ordinary about carrying 4 lives inside her. She pressed a hand against her belly and whispered, "It's you and me now, all 5 of us." That was the moment she decided she would tell no one. Not Jordan, not the media, not the world that pitted her. He had forfeited his right to this chapter of her life the night he walked away. By the end of the month, the mansion was sold. She packed her clothes, her grandmother's cookbook, a few family photos, and drove away from the city that had witnessed her humiliation. The road stretched endlessly before her, the skyline fading behind her rearview mirror. She didn't know exactly where she was going, only that she needed a place far from gossip, cameras, and memories. After hours of driving, she found it, a small coastal town called Willow Springs, where the air smelled of salt and the streets were lined with pastel houses and sleepy cafes. The kind of place where no one cared who you used to be. A for rent sign in a bakery window caught her eye. The little shop was dusty and forgotten, but something about it spoke to her. Maybe because it reminded her of herself. Within a week, the lease was signed. Using what little savings she had left, she repainted the walls, polished the counters, and hung a sign above the door. Sweet Rise. Her first customer was a fisherman who came in for coffee and left saying her muffins tasted like hope. Word spread fast. Within months, Sweet Rise became the town's favorite morning stop, not just for the pastries, but for the woman behind the counter with the kind smile and the growing belly. People in Willow Springs didn't ask about her past. They only saw the present, a hardworking woman starting fresh. And for Sasha, that was enough. She woke up early each morning to the smell of bread baking and the sound of waves crashing outside her window. Each kick from her unborn children reminded her why she kept going. At night, she would sit on the porch, sip tea, and whisper softly, "You're safe now." Her heart still carried scars, but her soul was healing. One loaf, one cupcake, one quiet sunrise at a time. The secret growing inside her wasn't a burden. It was her rebellion. Because while the world saw a woman left behind, Sasha Dean was quietly building something far greater. A life that would one day make even the man who broke her heart stop and wonder how he ever let her go. The morning sun in Willow Springs had a way of softening everything it touched. The ocean waves, the sleepy storefronts, even the cracks in the sidewalk. For Sasha Dean, that light had become her daily miracle. It had been months since she'd arrived in the quiet coastal town, broken but determined. Now, as the bell above the door of her bakery's Sweet Rise chimed with each new customer, laughter and warmth replaced the loneliness that once consumed her life. The once empty shop now smelled of vanilla, cinnamon, and possibility. Locals filled the small tables every morning. Fishermen, teachers, families, all drawn in not just by her pastries, but by the woman behind the counter. Sasha, 8 months pregnant and radiant, moved with a quiet grace that seemed almost unreal. Her growing belly didn't slow her down. She worked from dawn till noon, smiling as she poured coffee and handed out loaves of fresh bread. The townsfolk adored her. Everyone called her Miss Sasha, and the story of the mysterious woman who'd arrived with nothing but a suitcase and a dream had become a small-town legend. But no one knew the full truth. Behind every smile, Sasha carried the weight of her secret, 4 tiny lives growing inside her. She often found herself talking softly to them as she baked, her hands dusted with flour. "You 4 are my best recipe," she'd whisper with a smile. "You'll rise just right, I promise." One late afternoon, as the bakery quieted, Mrs. Darlene stopped by. Darlene was a retired widow in her 70s, a woman with silver hair always tied in a bun and a heart full of wisdom. She had taken to visiting Sasha daily, sitting by the window and knitting while Sasha worked. Over time, she'd become a friend, a confidant, almost a mother figure. That afternoon, she watched Sasha wipe down the counter, her belly round beneath her apron. "You know, honey," Darlene said, stirring her tea, "you remind me of bread." Sasha laughed. "Bread? That's a new one." Darlene said, her eyes twinkling. "You think life broke you, honey? No, it baked you. And you're rising, just like you were meant to." Sasha froze, the words sinking deep into her heart. She smiled, tears threatening to spill. "You really think I'll rise?" Darlene reached over, touching her hand. "You already have." That night, Sasha lay in bed, her hands on her belly, listening to the ocean crash outside her window. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel lost. She felt whole. But life has a way of testing even the strongest souls. It happened a week later, A sharp pain in her abdomen, sudden and deep. Then another. She dropped the mixing spoon and grabbed the counter to steady herself. Her breath hitched. Not yet, she thought. Please, not yet. Mrs. Darlene, she called out weakly. The older woman rushed in from the front room, eyes wide with alarm. Sasha, I think it's time, Sasha gasped. Within minutes, chaos erupted. Darlene grabbed her car keys, helped her into the back seat, and raced toward Willow Springs General Hospital. Sasha's breaths came fast and shallow, each contraction sharper than the last. Hang on, sweetheart, Darlene said, gripping her hand. When those babies are going to be just fine. The hospital lights blurred as they wheeled Sasha into the maternity ward. Nurses surrounded her, voices firm yet gentle. Machines beeped, monitors flashed, and her heartbeat thundered in her ears. It's too early, Sasha whispered, tears in her eyes. They're not ready. A nurse squeezed her shoulder. They're fighters, just like their mama. Hours passed like minutes. Between contractions and exhaustion, Sasha could barely keep her eyes open. But through the haze of pain, she heard it, the first cry, then another, and another. 4 cries. 4 heartbeats. She blinked up at the doctor, who smiled behind her mask. Congratulations, Mama. For beautiful, healthy baby girls. Tears streamed down Sasha's face. Hope, faith, grace, and joy, she whispered, naming them one by one. That's what you'll be. The nurses exchanged smiles. Darlene stood in the doorway, her eyes glistening with pride. Told you, honey, she said softly, you'd rise. By morning, news spread across Willow Springs. The woman from Sweet Rise had given birth to quadruplets. The town buzzed with excitement. Neighbors arrived at the hospital with flowers, toys, and handwritten cards. The local newspaper ran a headline that read, Miracle Mother of Willow Springs welcomes 4 beautiful daughters. Sasha couldn't stop smiling. As she held her tiny girls, each no bigger than her forearm, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not fear, not anger, but peace. For the first time since Jordan had called her ordinary, she saw herself clearly, not as a woman who'd been left behind, but as a woman who had risen from ashes and created life, hope, and beauty from pain. The world might still remember her as Jordan Dean's ex-wife, but in Willow Springs, she was something far greater. She was Sasha Dean, the miracle mother. And as she watched the morning sun spill through the hospital window, she knew this was only the beginning. 5 years had passed since the night Sasha Dean's life changed forever. 5 years since heartbreak turned into healing, and pain transformed into purpose. What started as a small bakery on the corner of Maple Street in Willow Springs had grown into something no one, not even Sasha, could have imagined. Sweet Rise had become a phenomenon. People drove for hours just to taste her famous cinnamon hope rolls or the buttery joy tarts that always sold out by noon. The bakery's warm aroma spilled into the streets, and her story, the woman who turned betrayal into business success, began spreading like wildfire. Then came a day everything changed again. A journalist from a lifestyle magazine stopped by one morning, intrigued by the constant line outside her shop. Sasha laughed it off when the woman asked for an interview, but a week later, the article hit newsstands under the headline, The Woman Who Baked Her Way Back from Betrayal. It went viral. Overnight, her little bakery became a brand, the Rise Company. From there, everything took off. Investors called. Cities reached out. Within a year, Sasha had opened branches in 3 major cities across the state, each one bustling with customers, each one carrying her signature message, healing tastes like hope. She appeared on morning shows, standing in spotless white aprons, her radiant smile lighting up the screen. Baking saved me, she'd say to hosts who hung on her every word. When life burns you, you don't throw yourself away. You start over and rise again. Behind the scenes, she remained the same grounded woman Willow Springs had fallen in love with. She still woke up before dawn, braided her long chestnut hair, packed school lunches for her 4 girls, and made breakfast with music playing softly in the background. Her daughters, hope, faith, grace, and joy, were her universe. Hope was the oldest by 5 minutes, serious and thoughtful, always helping her mom measure ingredients. Faith was bold, full of questions and ideas. Grace was the quiet artist, painting little cupcakes in watercolor on napkins. And Joy, true to her name, was laughter personified, a whirlwind of curls and curiosity. Sasha often stood by the kitchen doorway, watching them giggle as they dipped their fingers in a frosting bowls. "You four are the best thing I ever made," she'd say. And they'd giggle louder, shouting, "We know, Mommy." Every corner of their cozy beach house radiated life. Photos lined the staircase. The girls' first steps, birthdays, school plays, messy hair, and frosting-covered faces. Sometimes at night, when the house was finally quiet, Sasha would sit by the window with a cup of tea, looking out at the moonlit ocean. The waves whispered like old friends. She'd smile softly, whispering, "We made it." But success didn't erase the past entirely. Sometimes she'd see an article online about Jordan Dean, her ex-husband, the man who once called her ordinary. His face still appeared in business headlines, though less frequently now. His empire, once golden, was crumbling. His company had lost major investors. Deals collapsed. Lawsuits surfaced. What had once been described as a fairy tale romance between Jordan and the glamorous supermodel Isabella Vega had turned into constant tabloid drama. Arguments caught on camera, postponed weddings, and rumored infidelities. Sasha never gloated. She didn't need to. Life had already taught her that karma doesn't always knock loudly. Sometimes it whispers through poetic irony. One day, while preparing for a feature on Forbes Women of Influence, Sasha's assistant handed her a tablet. "You might want to see this," she said. On the screen was a headline that almost made Sasha laugh aloud. "Jordan Dean's empire on the brink. Sources say he may step down." She stared at the photo. Jordan's face looked tired, his perfect smile forced. Isabella was nowhere to be seen. Sasha placed the tablet down, her lips curving into a calm smile. "Life has a funny way of evening things out, doesn't it?" she said softly. Her assistant smiled nervously. "You're not upset?" Sasha shook her head. "Not all. The chapter closed a long time ago." And it had, because for Sasha Dean, the woman who once stood in the ashes of her broken marriage, life had come full circle. But destiny, as always, had one more twist waiting. A few weeks later, her PR manager brought exciting news. "We've been invited to open the Rise Company's flagship store in the city," she said. "Downtown, right where it all started for you." Sasha paused, her spoon hovering over a bowl of batter. "Downtown?" she repeated, her heart giving a strange little jolt. The same city she had fled years ago, the city that once watched her fall apart, now wanted to celebrate her success. She smiled faintly. "Looks like it's time to go home," she said. Her daughter squealed when she told them. They packed their bags with excitement, not knowing how symbolic the journey really was. As the car drove toward the city skyline, Sasha gazed out the window, not with fear, but with quiet confidence. The girl who once left that city heartbroken was gone. Now she was Sasha Dean, the founder of the Rise Company, the mother of 4, the woman who turned betrayal into brilliance. What she didn't know yet was that life was about to bring her face to face with the one thing she thought she'd buried forever, her past. And when it did, the world would once again remember her name, not as the woman Jordan Dean left behind, but as the woman who rose higher than he ever could. The city skyline shimmered under the morning sun, glass towers catching the light, traffic buzzing like a restless heartbeat. For most people, it was just another Monday. But for Sasha Dean, it was a full-circle moment. 5 years ago, she had left this city broken, humiliated, and invisible. Now, she was returning, not as the woman who'd been left behind, but as the woman everyone was talking about. Cameras lined the sidewalks outside her newest flagship store, the Rise Company downtown, a masterpiece of modern design with pale gold trim, marble counters, and the comforting scent of freshly baked pastries drifting into the street. Flashbulbs popped as she stepped out of a black car, dressed in a tailored white suit that whispered quiet power. Her long brown hair was pinned in a sleek bun, diamond studs glinting subtly under the morning light. The reporters swarmed immediately. "Miss Dean, how does it feel to be back? What inspired you to open the Rise Company here? Do you have a message for women who've been through what you have?" Sasha smiled, poised and radiant. "I'd say this. Life doesn't end when someone leaves you. Sometimes it begins." Applause erupted from the crowd. It was more than a business opening. It was a homecoming. The same city that once pitted her was now celebrating her. Inside, her staff rushed around excitedly. "We're sold out of croissants already," one called. "And the press wants a quote about the new salted caramel line." Sasha laughed lightly, her voice calm but confident. "Tell them it's just a little sweetness for people who've had their share of bitterness." The day was a dream. Smiles, congratulations, the hum of success. But fate, as always, had a way of slipping through the door uninvited. It was late afternoon when the bell over the bakery door chimed again. Sasha turned from the counter, still smiling, until she saw him. Jordan Dean. Time seemed to stop. He looked older, sharper around the edges, his once carefree charm replaced by something heavier. Beside him stood Isabella Vega, still stunning, but her smile strained, the sparkle in her eyes dimmed by something unseen. The world around them faded. No reporters, no customers, just the echo of memories Sasha had buried years ago. "Jordan," she said evenly. "What a surprise." He blinked, clearly caught off guard by the calm confidence in her tone. "Sasha," his voice cracked slightly. "You look successful," she finished smoothly, folding her arms. He gave a small, nervous laugh. "Beautiful as always." Sasha's lips curved faintly. "Thank you. To what do I owe the pleasure?" Isabella stepped forward, clutching a portfolio. "We're planning our wedding," she said, her voice carefully polite. "And we were hoping your company would cater it." For a moment, silence blanketed the room. Sasha's staff froze mid-step. Even the coffee machine seemed to go quiet. Jordan shifted uncomfortably. "We heard you're the best in the business," he added quickly. "And it would mean a lot to have you on board." Sasha looked at them both. The man who broke her heart and the woman who helped him do it, standing in her store, asking for her service. She almost laughed. Instead, she tilted her head, her expression thoughtful. "You want me to bake your wedding cake?" Isabella nodded eagerly, oblivious to the tension simmering beneath Sasha's calm exterior. "Your brand has such a story of rebirth. We thought it would be poetic." Poetic. That word almost made Sasha smile. She took a step closer, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. "You're right," she said. "It would be poetic." Jordan relaxed slightly until she added, "But unfortunately, we're fully booked." The air shifted instantly. Jordan's jaw tightened. "Surely, you can make an exception." Sasha's eyes met his, steady, unflinching. "No exceptions." For a moment, neither spoke. She could feel his gaze lingering, scanning her face, her posture, the confidence that radiated from her. The woman standing before him was not the timid, tearful wife he'd once walked out on. She was powerful, magnetic, untouchable. And for the first time, Jordan Dean realized exactly what he had thrown away. He cleared his throat, tried to recover his composure. "I'm happy for you, Sasha. Really, you've done well." She smiled, the kind of smile that said she didn't need his approval anymore. "I have," she said simply, "and I wish you both the very best." Truly. Isabella forced a smile, looping her arm through Jordan's. "Thank you, Sasha. It's good to see you doing so well." "Likewise," Sasha replied coolly. As they turned to leave, Sasha glanced briefly at the reflection of their backs in the bakery window. Once symbols of the life that broke her, now just two people fading into the background of her story. Her assistant approached quietly. "That was him, wasn't it?" Sasha nodded, her eyes still fixed on the door. "Yes, that was him. Are you okay?" Sasha exhaled slowly, a smile tugging at the corner of her lips. "Better than okay. I just remembered who I am." Outside, cameras still flashed. Inside, the aroma of cinnamon and vanilla filled the air again, warm, alive, unstoppable. The world would remember this day as the grand reopening of the Rise Company. But for Sasha Dean, it was something far greater. The day she came face to face with her past and realized she no longer needed to look back. The morning sun slipped through the blinds of Sasha Dean's penthouse office, glinting off the gold lettering of the envelope lying on her desk. Cream-colored, heavy, elegant, the kind of stationery used by people who believed appearances were everything. Her assistant, Tanya, had brought it in that morning with a curious look. It was hand-delivered, she said. No return address, just your name in gold script. Now, Sasha sat staring at it, her fingers tracing the seal. She didn't need to open it to know who it was from. Something in her gut already told her. Still, she slid it open carefully. Inside was a wedding invitation, embossed, perfumed, and cruelly ironic. Mr. Jordan Dean and Ms. Isabella Vega request the honor of your presence at their wedding ceremony. The words blurred for a moment as she read them, not because they hurt, but because they were almost laughable. After all these years, after the silence, the scandal, the bakery, now this? Sasha leaned back in her chair and let out a small, amused laugh. Well, she murmured, isn't that poetic? When she showed the invitation to Mrs. Darlene later that afternoon over tea, the older woman nearly choked on her biscuit. Please tell me you're not actually considering going, Darlene said, her eyebrows raised. Sasha smiled faintly. Everyone keeps saying that. Because everyone's right, Darlene exclaimed. That man humiliated you, lied to you, and now he's marrying that model. You don't owe him your presence. Sasha set her teacup down gently. I know I don't owe him anything, Darlene. That's exactly why I'm going. The older woman stared at her, incredulous. You've lost your mind. Sasha's eyes softened. No, she said, her voice calm, confident. I've finally found it. I'm not the woman he left anymore. I'm the woman he'll never forget. The night of the wedding arrived like a storm the city had been waiting for. It was the event of the year. A billionaire real estate mogul marrying an international supermodel. The venue was a five-star hotel ballroom decked in gold and white, guarded by security and swarmed by paparazzi. But no one could have predicted who would steal the spotlight that night. Outside, a sleek white limousine rolled to a stop on the red carpet. The crowd leaned forward, cameras ready, assuming it was another celebrity guest. But when the door opened, the flashbulbs erupted in chaos. First, a pair of golden heels touched the ground. Then the crowd saw her, Sasha Dean, draped in an elegant gold gown that shimmered like sunlight, her hair in soft curls, diamonds glinting at her ears. She looked every bit like the woman the world once pitied but never truly knew. The reporters gasped, cameras snapping wildly. That's her, someone shouted. Jordan's ex-wife. Sasha stepped out gracefully, her expression calm, unreadable, but her eyes burned with quiet fire. She smiled faintly as microphones were shoved toward her. Miss Dean, did you come to wish them well? Is it true you were invited personally? Any message for Isabella Vega? Sasha's lips curved into a poised smile. Sometimes, you don't need to wish people well, she said smoothly. You just let them see what well looks like. The crowd roared. But before anyone could respond, gasps spread through the reporters again. Because the limousine door hadn't closed yet. Out stepped four little girls. All identical. All dressed in matching white satin dresses with soft curls and golden ribbons. Each one held one of Sasha's hands as they stood beside her. For beautiful, beaming faces that looked uncannily familiar. The whispers began instantly, spreading like wildfire. Wait, are those? They look just like. Are those his? Cameras flashed faster. Reporters scrambled for angles. The air buzzed with disbelief. Sasha's daughters, Hope, Faith, Grace, and Joy, looked up at her, their little hands squeezing hers tightly. Mommy, Joy whispered, why are people staring? Sasha knelt down, adjusting a loose ribbon in her daughter's hair. Because, sweetheart, she said softly, they've never seen what Grace really looks like. She stood again, chin lifted, eyes forward, and together they walked through the ballroom doors. 5 rays of golden light cutting through a sea of whispers. Inside, heads turned. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Even the music seemed to pause for a heartbeat as Sasha made her entrance. At the far end of the room, Jordan Dean froze. He was standing near the stage, talking to a reporter when he saw her, and for a second, it was as if the world tilted beneath him. His face drained of color. Isabella followed his gaze, her perfectly painted smile faltering. Sasha met his eyes across the room, calm and unflinching. Then, ever so slightly, she smiled, not with arrogance but with peace. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the woman he once called ordinary walked past him like royalty, her daughters in tow. That night, people would forget the speeches, the decor, even the bride's designer gown. But they would never forget the sight of Sasha Dean, glowing in gold, surrounded by the daughters he never knew existed, walking into her ex-husband's wedding like a storm made of elegance and revenge. And as the whispers grew louder, Sasha leaned down to her girls and said softly, "Come on, my loves. Let's show them how far we've come." The ballroom glimmered like a dream. Crystal chandeliers raining light across marble floors, champagne glasses chiming softly, a string quartet playing beneath a canopy of roses. It was the kind of wedding people would talk about for years. But no one would remember the flowers. No one would remember the music. They'd remember her. Sasha Dean. She stood just inside the doorway, framed by the soft glow of gold and candlelight. Her 4 daughters held her hands, their matching white dresses gleaming like pearls. The murmurs rippled through the crowd, soft at first, then spreading like a current of electricity. That's her, the ex-wife. And those girls, are they his? Jordan Dean, mid-speech at the front of the room, turned at the sudden hush that fell over the guests. His practiced smile froze. His champagne flute trembled slightly in his hand. For a moment, time stopped. The world around him, the cameras, the crowd, even Isabella standing beside him, faded to nothing. All he saw was Sasha, the woman he had once called ordinary. But there was nothing ordinary about her now. Her gold gown shimmered under the lights, her posture straight, her gaze calm and commanding. She radiated something he couldn't name, grace, strength, maybe power. Whatever it was, it made the air feel heavier. He swallowed hard, words caught in his throat. "Sasha," he managed to whisper, almost to himself. Isabella followed his gaze and went pale. "What is she doing here?" she hissed under her breath, her perfect smile faltering. Sasha met Jordan's eyes across the room, unflinching. She walked forward slowly, her daughters following in perfect rhythm, their little fingers clutching hers. Each step echoed, a sound that grew louder than the music, louder than the whispers, louder than the pounding in Jordan's chest. When she stopped in front of him, the silence was absolute. "Good evening," she said softly, her voice steady, regal. He looked at her, speechless. "Sasha, you called me ordinary once, Jordan," she said, her tone gentle but cutting. "But there's nothing ordinary about a woman who survives you." Gasps fluttered across the room. Isabella's face turned white. A reporter in the corner dropped his pen. Flashbulbs erupted like fireworks as the photographers caught the moment. The tension, the heartbreak, the poetic justice written across Sasha's face. Jordan tried to find his words. "I didn't mean..." She cut him off, her eyes sharp. "You did. And that's fine, because I believed you once. I thought maybe I was ordinary, but now I see what you couldn't." She looked down at her daughters, for little girls, identical smiles lighting up their faces, their eyes wide with curiosity. "You see," Sasha said, lifting her chin, "you didn't just leave a wife behind. You left a legacy." The whispers turned into a storm. People leaned closer, murmuring, calculating. The resemblance between the girls and Jordan was undeniable. The truth was obvious. Isabella's voice cracked through the air. "You're saying, those children..." Sasha smiled faintly. "You can do the math, Isabella." The room exploded with flashes and noise. Reporters whispered furiously into phones. Assistants scurried. Cameras clicked nonstop. In seconds, the story was out. The Rise Company founder crashes ex-husband's wedding with his 4 daughters. Sasha didn't care. She didn't come to humiliate anyone. She came to close a chapter. She turned to Jordan one last time, her voice softening. I don't hate you, Jordan. I never did. You taught me something I'll never forget. He blinked, guilt flickering across his face. What's that? That I didn't need you to build something beautiful, she said simply. I just needed to remember who I was. With that, she turned. The crowd parted as Sasha and her daughters walked toward the exit, the trail of her gold gown shimmering behind her like liquid sunlight. Each step was freedom, each breath lighter than the last. Behind her, chaos unfolded. Reporters shouting questions, guests whispering, Isabella's composure cracking, Jordan standing frozen in the center of it all. He watched her leave, and for the first time, the weight of everything hit him. He hadn't just lost a wife. He had lost the woman who believed in him, the woman who built him, the woman whose strength could never be replaced. From the balcony above, Jordan stood silently as Sasha's limousine pulled away from the hotel. He watched her daughters' faces glowing through the window, their laughter soft and pure. The sound carried faintly up into the night air, haunting him. His reflection in the glass looked like a stranger. Below, Sasha leaned back in the seat, her hand resting on her daughter's knees as they giggled over the event. Her heart was calm. No anger, no bitterness, just peace. She glanced once through the window, up at the glittering hotel where it all ended. Then she smiled to herself. Goodbye, Jordan, she whispered. And thank you for letting me go. The car turned the corner, disappearing into the soft glow of sunrise. That morning, every news outlet in the country carried her name. Not as the ex-wife of a millionaire, but as Sasha Dean, the woman who rose from betrayal. And as the world talked, she simply moved forward, her daughters laughing beside her, her empire thriving, her dignity untouched. Because sometimes revenge doesn't come through destruction. It comes through rebirth.